So, how many of you have ever heard of a snake oil salesman? Well, where did that characteristic come from? The characterization, excuse me. Where'd that come from? Do you know?
Makes old medicine.
Yeah, it makes medicine that's supposed to take care of something that everybody wants to have taken care of. But why does everybody laugh when you say a snake oil salesman? It wasn't true, was it? They were P.T. Barnum type people. They got you to believe in it, and you'd buy it, and you'd get bitten by the snake, and what would happen? You'd either get real sick or you'd die. And of course, you weren't around to find the snake oil salesman because they left and went someplace else. Well, I don't know. What did you think of that reading today? How's that going to have any meaning to us in today's world? I was thinking that it's too bad that I'm not at all creative in the sense of Shar or somebody, because I would have made one of those snake things to hold up on a pole. But I didn't do it, I'm sorry. But what would you have done if I did? You would have, tee-hee-hee, what's he trying to do? What do we do with this story? First of all, let's notice an interesting thing about the story, as old as it is. When the plague of snakes came upon the people, and the snakes were everywhere, they were biting them, they go to God and ask God to do what? Take the snakes away. That is not what God did. That is not what God did. The snakes stayed. Did you get that part of the story? And they kept biting the people. But Moses made this thing. So if you got bitten and you looked at it, you wouldn't die. But the snakes stayed. And the people got bitten. So I want to give this story at least this much credit. It's not trying to tell you that if you're a faithful person, nothing bad will ever happen to you in your life. Is it? Did anybody ever try to tell you that? That if you're just faithful and really stay faithful, that nothing bad will ever happen in life? If they did, I apologize. If it was a minister, I wish you'd tell me which minister it was. I'll have them exterminated. They lied to you. That is not what being faithful is all about. So can we all agree with that at least this story doesn't try to tell you that? It says just the opposite. It says, yeah, if you're getting bitten by snakes, you're still going to have to be careful of the snakes whether you're faithful or not. How many of you know that there are places that you can go, not just in the Middle East, even here in the United States, where there's a whole bunch of things that can kill you or make you real sick? And a lot of them are in the, desert. There's scorpions, there's rattlesnakes, there's all, you know that. So this part of the story probably isn't untrue, that as they were, their nomadic existence, they were moving along, they came to a place where there were snakes all over the place. Now, snakes don't usually announce themselves. They sneak up on you, or you step on them in the high grass or something, and there is high grass in the desert. Now, at this point in Israel's life, tell me what their houses were like. Yeah, they were tents. And so they were sleeping on the ground. Where do snakes live? On the ground. So that's probably real. And there's this corporate memory that has been passed on about the time where we ended up in the middle of all these snakes and they started biting us, but we made it out, so it must have been God that saved us. And also in those times, if something really bad like that happened to a whole bunch of Israelites, they had just assumed that they must have done something very wrong and God sent the plague, okay? Now, how many of you believe that happened still? I hope you don't, but if you do, let me know, and I'll take it easy for the rest of the sermon. That's not the way it works. If it were the way it worked, I would choose not to believe in that God. How about you? Because where's that God when little babies are being abused? Where's that God when Ebola breaks out? That's just, eh. So let's leave all that behind. What can this story teach us today? What was the snake made out of? Bronze. What could do we have anything that we use like that today? What did I hear? I heard somebody say something. I didn't plant people really, but you know, I tested this earlier. I'm waving this. What's this made of? Isn't that interesting? This is made of bronze. And what is this? What is this? Yeah, it's, well, the cross, a cross. Okay, then let me ask another question. Why is this? Why is it up there? Well, I was going to try to be really dramatic. I admit it, but there's no way I was going to take the chance of dropping it on you all, so that stays. But why do we do this? How many persons have gone to a baptism, and if it's a baby, what's the most common gift the baby gets? A little cross, a little necklace with a cross. Why? Remind what? Of Jesus? Well, what are we supposed to remember?
What he died for.
Yeah, but what's that going to teach you? Is it supposed to remind us of the death? That's awful pretty. That's almost like a piece of jewelry, isn't it? That doesn't remind me of death. Love, of forgiveness. What's it stand for? Resurrection. Because for Protestants, that's why there is no body on the cross. It's supposed to emphasize resurrection instead of the sacrifice. I mean, that's the thought behind it. Again, that's just people trying to be one up on somebody else. Which is the better cross? You know? But seriously, what do we mean by this? When we look at this, is it supposed to get rid of the snake bites? Okay, give us hope. When we look at this, is it the same as when the Israelites looked at that snake? Bronze snake. Or do we even know what we're supposed to think when we look at this? Do we even know why these sit in our houses of worship? Let's talk about that. What if every Sunday I hold this up and say, okay, what did that just do for you? What did it do for you? Nothing. Nothing. Is that what you're saying? So what is this supposed to be for us? Because this is our bronze serpent. In the times of the Davidic and other Israeli monarchies, in those years past, when they did have a king and everything, they were still the king over a bunch of scattered tribes, way out here and there and every place like that. And many of those scattered tribes had snake gods. Really, there was even a name for them. It was kind of a popular religion amongst some of the tribes out there because snakes killed their sheep and their cattle and their people and everything, and so they had to try to get on their good sides. What are we doing with this? That's ours. What are we doing with it? Come on. Okay. A reminder of what, though? God's love? Is that what we're supposed to think of there? Forgiveness? I don't know. Somebody died on that thing in the story I know. And there wasn't a whole lot of forgiveness in that death. The Romans put him to death because because of the problem with allegiance to Caesar. That's why he was put to death. Had nothing to do with some sacrifice and appeasing God. It had to do with the Romans didn't want to have that kind of problem with the Jews who Herod had kept quiet for all that time. So, may I suggest this? If this is going to mean anything to us, it has to mean something about the way we live. Live, not die, but live. That if this means anything, it means us to remember that the life that we know of Jesus, the stories all kind of add up to one thing. He refused to do anything other than give of himself so that others might live. Okay? Can we agree on that? It doesn't matter which story of Jesus' life you read, because there's 4 different ones in 4 different Gospels. You put them all together, and the details don't matter so much. It's just that he wouldn't do anything other than give of himself so that others might live. And it was obvious that he believed that living that way was to live in God. So maybe that's what this is supposed to be for us. It's not magic. I don't think that snake in the wilderness was either, do you? But people believed it was. And of course, if it didn't work, then they must have been really bad people. This doesn't have so much to do with God as it has to do with you and me. It says that this is to remind us that the only reason for being a Christian is to join in that realization that by giving ourselves away, life is created. That we use the totality of the life that's been preserved in stories, in memories, in the spirit within us of Jesus, because he did that so perfectly that we can believe without any trouble that somehow that was a holy life. Very human life, and he died, but it was so powerful because he gave himself away that even death couldn't kill him. So please don't try to ever use your faith or these symbols of our faith as if they were magic. They are not. This only works if we decide to let it remind us of that call to come and follow me. And I will make you into those who get the lives of other persons. That's what this is. I wish the Israelites had that in the desert. Those with ears to hear, let them hear what the Spirit is saying to the churches. Amen. I had a very moving experience many years ago now in another pastorate I was serving. I had become quite close to a rabbi in the same town, and we met and talked a lot. He had had a similar friendship years before I got to that town with a Methodist minister. And he and his wife had had the Methodist minister and his wife over to dinner one night. And when the Methodist minister and his wife walked in the front door, both of them just kind of stopped and had this look on their face. And the rabbi thought, what have I done? You know, and he said, so we finally got him to come and sit down. He said, and I asked him, what happened when you walked in the door? He said, as soon as I walked in the front door, I knew that you and your family were faithful Jews because you had put symbols all over to remind yourself of that fact. And both my wife and I realized in that minute that if you walked through our front door, you'd never know. I only share with you that experience because that cross is supposed to remind us that the only place that people need to look to find out what our faith is to the content of our lives and to the way that we give ourselves to other people. Yes, I wish that more of us had crosses in our houses or other things like that, but that wouldn't mean anything if it were not for what that cross stood for and whether or not our lives showed that forth. So let's leave here to live as if we believe what that cross has reminded us of. Amen.